I stood in front of the large window in the living room, staring blankly across the front lawn into the distance. The sun was warm against my face, yet my heart felt as cold as the last winds of winter. Because my ex-husband, the man who once betrayed me and abandoned our son and me, had suddenly barged back into my life, determined to fight for custody of Noah. 10 years ago I married Eric. A year later Noah was born. I once believed Eric would be the man to walk with me through the rest of my life. But before Noah even turned 1, everything changed. Eric fell in love with another woman. For her, he forced me to sign the divorce papers and kicked me and my infant son out of our home in San Francisco. After the divorce, I was left alone, raising a baby by myself. Life nearly crushed me. There were countless moments when I thought about ending everything. But every time I looked down at that soft, innocent little life in my arms, I gritted my teeth and held on. After the divorce, Eric vanished completely, leaving behind nothing but a monthly child support payment. The only thing he ever did that remotely resembled being a father. I truly believed I would never have anything to do with him again. But just as I was starting to rebuild my life with David, Eric showed up at my door demanding to take Noah back. I let out a cold laugh and asked him, "Didn't you have a son with that woman? Why are you coming after Noah now?" Eric's face darkened instantly. Clenching his jaw, he spat out, "Don't you dare mention that bitch. The kid wasn't even mine. I was played for a fool." He told me that all these years he thought that boy was his own. But as the child grew, he realized there was no resemblance. A paternity test confirmed his worst suspicion. The boy had no biological connection to him at all. Hearing that, I almost threw my head back and laughed. Karma, I thought. It never misses its mark. I looked at him with nothing but contempt. "So, how does it feel? You did the same to me all those years ago and now you get to wear the crown of a fool. Satisfying, isn't it?" Eric's face twitched, but he didn't argue back. He mumbled, "Say whatever you want. I know I wronged you." He took a long, deep breath, then said slowly, "My health is failing. The doctor said it's almost impossible for me to have another child now. I heard you and David had a daughter. Wait, give me Noah. Let him stay with me so he can take care of me when I'm old." I stared him down, my voice ice cold. "Keep dreaming." Eric's face hardened and his voice rose sharply. "I'm not here to ask. I'm here to tell you. Either you agree or I'll see you in court." After refusing Eric, a heavy gloom settled over me. Noah had grown up without a father's presence, always yearning for the kind of fatherly love he never really knew. Despite my hatred for Eric's betrayal, I had never said a single bad word about him in front of Noah. In Noah's mind, Eric remained the absent but idealized good dad. I had poured my entire life into raising Noah, foolishly believing that the bond between us was unbreakable. I thought no matter what, he would always stand by me. But it took nothing more than a few pairs of limited edition sneakers and a handful of VIP concert tickets from Eric for Noah to waver. So easily he tossed aside all the years of love and sacrifice I had given him. I went to find him, trying to bring him back home. But Noah stared at me stubbornly and said, "I'm not coming back. I'd rather live a decent life with my real dad than keep struggling with you." Then he added coldly, "You only know how to control me, suffocate me. All you ever want is for me to study, study and study. I hate you." His words pierced me like knives, leaving me almost unable to stand. Years of blood, sweat and tears, all turned into a cruel joke in an instant. I admit it, I had been strict with Noah. But that was because he was naturally mischievous. If I didn't keep a tight rein on him, how could he have had any chance at a decent future? Besides, Noah wasn't David's biological son. I constantly worried that his wild ways might cause David to resent him. I was strict because I wanted to protect him, to help him have a place in our home. But he didn't understand. He never understood. That evening, I dragged my exhausted body home. In the living room, David and Lily were waiting for me on the couch. The moment Lily saw me, she jumped down and ran over, grabbing my hand. Tilting her small face up at me, she asked, "Mommy, where's Noah? Didn't he come back with you?" I forced a weak smile and slowly shook my head. David walked over without a word and pulled me into his arms. I couldn't hold it in any longer. I buried my face in his shoulder and broke down in sobs. Lily clutched my hand tightly with her tiny fingers, her voice quivering as she whispered, "Mommy, please don't cry. Please don't cry." Her soft, trembling voice felt like a delicate thread, stitching together the places inside me that were about to fall apart. Later, I told David everything that had happened. He held me close, gently soothing me. If Noah's already made his choice, you have to let him go. Holding on will only tear you two further apart. He paused, his voice warm but firm. Even if he's with his father now, you'll always be his mother. That will never change. Don't doubt yourself. Don't ever feel abandoned. You still have me and you have Lily. We're not going anywhere. Hearing David's words, my eyes filled with tears again, but this time there was warmth inside. Maybe he was right. If Noah's heart was already gone, clinging to him would only push him farther away. So be it, let him go. The house settled into a strange, heavy quiet. So quiet it almost hurt. The clock in the kitchen ticked softly. A breeze stirred the trees outside. Somewhere nearby, a neighbor's lawnmower hummed steadily. I stood by the window, a cold cup of coffee in my hand, staring blankly at my phone screen. It had been a week since Noah moved in with Eric. He hadn't sent me a single message. And I hadn't reached out to him either. David gently urged me, let him figure it out on his own. I understood. But it didn't stop the ache in my chest, the restless worry gnawing at me. Sometimes I would open social media and quietly check Eric's updates. In the photos, Noah was wearing brand new athletic gear, limited edition sneakers on his feet, laughing as he helped Eric set up a tent in the backyard. His smile was wide, his eyes crinkled into bright little crescents. Each photo felt like a tiny needle pricking at my heart. Was Noah truly happy? Or was he just swept up in the excitement of something new? I set my phone down and took a deep breath, forcing myself to walk away from the kitchen. Don't think about it. Really, don't think about it. But at night, after Lily had fallen asleep and David retreated to his office to work, I would find myself quietly reaching for my phone again, scrolling through those gleaming, happy photos. Then I would turn off the screen and bury myself deep in the couch cushions. On the other side of town, Noah was indeed caught up in the excitement at first. Eric bought him the gaming console he had always wanted. The fridge was stuffed with chips, sodas, and chocolates, things he could never even dream of having freely at my house. He didn't have to stick to a homework schedule anymore. He could stay up late in the living room with Eric watching basketball games until well past midnight. The next morning, even if he yawned through breakfast, no one hurried him to get ready for school. Noah thought this is what freedom feels like. No one cared if he ate too much junk food. No one hovered over him while he struggled with homework. He could sprawl across the couch without hearing a word of complaint. Every now and then, he would hear a ghost of my voice in his mind, gently reminding him to drink less soda, or insisting he turn off the lights and sleep on time. But he would quickly shake his head, pushing the memories away. I'm grown up now, he told himself. I don't need mom bossing me around every day. Eric would sometimes ruffle his hair, laughing. With Dad you can do whatever you want. That's how a real man lives, free and easy. Noah would smile proudly when he heard that. At first. But within just a few days things started to feel off. Eric often came home close to 10 o'clock at night, reeking of alcohol and cheap perfume from strange women. At school, when Noah turned in a parent invitation for the open house, Eric shrugged it off, saying he was too busy with work to attend. Dinner, when there was any, was usually cold takeout pizza left on the kitchen counter. No one asked if he had eaten. No one even seemed to notice. At first, Noah told himself it didn't matter. He was a man now. He didn't need anyone taking care of him. But little by little, a dull ache began to grow in a corner of his heart. Sometimes he would sit curled up on the living room couch, staring out at the stars, absent-mindedly crunching on chips. And quietly he would think, if Mom were here she'd make me a hot sandwich and a warm glass of milk. He sniffed hard, quickly shaking his head to banish the thought. I'm not a little kid anymore, he muttered under his breath, though his eyes grew misty and red. I didn't know any of this. I was simply living in my own small world, slowly learning to fold my wings and stop chasing after the little boy who was drifting farther and farther away. Sometimes I would spend afternoons planting flowers in the garden, feeling the sunlight warm the soil and release a faint, sweet scent. Lily would bounce around beside me, her tiny hands gripping a watering can as she carefully sprinkled each little seedling. Mommy, will this flower grow lots and lots of little flowers? She asked, blinking up at me. I crouched down, gently smoothing her hair with my hand and smiled. It will, sweetheart. As long as we take good care of it, It'll grow up strong and bloom lots of beautiful flowers. As I said it, a strange, bittersweet feeling stirred inside me. Maybe love isn't about holding on tightly. Maybe love is standing quietly in place, even after being pushed away, waiting patiently for a small heart to find its way back. Friday night, Noah sat alone on the living room carpet, fiddling with a new robotic building kit he had just gotten. The TV was on, blaring some mindless talk show into the empty room. Outside, darkness had fallen. Every now and then, the low hum of a passing car echoed down the street. Noah had been saving the kit, waiting to build it with Eric. He had only opened the box halfway, deliberately leaving it for that special father and son moment. But it had been 5 hours since he got home from school and Eric still wasn't back. His phone rang and rang but no one answered. Noah, stomach rumbling, wandered into the kitchen to find something to eat. The fridge was nearly empty. Just a few bottles of beer and a box of sandwiches edging toward expiration. He gnawed on the tough, stale bread, feeling a strange hollow space growing larger and larger inside his chest. Finally, at 10:30, the door lock rattled. Eric stumbled in, looking exhausted, his jacket half hanging off his shoulder, a full bottle of whiskey swinging from his hand. He gave Noah a fleeting glance and grunted, "Why aren't you in bed yet?" Noah blinked, clutching the building kit tighter. "I was waiting for you. Remember? We were supposed to build the robot together." Eric kicked off his shoes and waved a hand vaguely. "Oh, that. Tomorrow, kid. I'm beat tonight." Without another word, he disappeared into the kitchen, cracked open the whiskey and drank a full glass down in one gulp. Noah stood frozen, the robot kit heavy in his hands. At that moment he felt like he had been marooned on a deserted island, with no one anywhere around him. The weekend brought beautiful weather. The early autumn sun was warm and gentle, and the air itself smelled faintly sweet. I stood outside Eric's house holding a box of homemade brownies, hesitating for a long time. I had spent every night telling myself to let go. But each time I walked past Noah's empty bedroom, it felt like there was a hole in my chest. I just wanted to see him. Even from a distance, just for a moment. The door finally opened. Noah stood there, surprised to see me. I crouched down a little and smiled, offering him the box. "Hi, sweetheart. I made your favorite brownies. I just wanted to bring them over and see how you're doing." Noah didn't take the box. Something flickered in his eyes, an emotion I couldn't catch, then hardened into irritation. "I don't want that," he muttered, turning his head away. "Here I can eat whatever I want. I don't have to eat your stupid healthy breakfasts or drink milk all the time." I froze, the box suspended awkwardly in the air. A wave of shame and heartbreak rushed over me, like someone had dumped a bucket of ice water over my head. Eric leaned against the doorframe behind him, smoking a cigarette, watching the scene unfold with detached amusement. "I just wanted to see you," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. "If you have a little time, maybe we could go for a short walk?" Noah frowned, his tone sharp. "I don't want to walk with you. Dad doesn't even like you, and if you keep bothering me, maybe he won't want me anymore." Eric chuckled under his breath, a small, smug sound. Emboldened, Noah's voice grew louder, harsher. "Stop coming here. I'm fine. I don't need you pretending to care about me." Felt like he had punched me straight in the gut. I staggered slightly, gripping the box so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I opened my mouth to say something, but no words came out. My throat felt stuffed with cotton. Noah stared at me, cold and distant. He looked at me like I was nothing more than a stranger. Like I had never been his mother, never once been important to him. The breeze on the porch whipped across my face, stinging. I didn't force it. Instead, I set the box of brownies gently down on the ground by the door. I crouched and tied the loose laces on his sneakers, my hands trembling. He jerked his foot away in annoyance. "Get off me." I lowered my head, hiding the sting in my eyes. Standing up, I brushed the dust from my jeans and took a step back, managing a small, steady smile. "Hey, sweetheart. Mommy's going now." I tried to sound light, like it didn't hurt. "Make sure you eat well, okay? The weather's getting cooler. Don't forget to wear an extra jacket." Noah turned away without a word and slammed the door shut. The box of brownies sat abandoned on the porch. Just like my love for him. Left out in the cold, unwanted, refused without mercy. When I got home, I said nothing. David saw the look on my face and didn't ask a single question. He simply handed me a steaming cup of tea. Lily scampered over, climbing onto my knee, looking up at me with her wide, trusting eyes. "Mommy, did Noah like the brownies you made?" I smiled, gently smoothing her hair, and said nothing. That night, I tossed and turned in bed, my eyes dry, unable to shed a single tear. Maybe the pain had squeezed all the tears out of me. Maybe it had gone too deep for tears to reach. Life didn't get any better for Noah after that cold, bitter rejection. Monday morning, 7 o'clock. I was in the kitchen brewing coffee, my fingers tapping restlessly against the rim of the mug. Today was parent open house at Noah's school. I didn't know if he even remembered. While tying Lily's shoelaces, David looked up and asked softly, "Are you going?" I nodded, saying nothing. The car keys felt heavy in my hand. I hesitated for a long time before finally getting in the car and driving toward the school. The whole way there I kept telling myself, just look. No pushing. No forcing. The parking lot was already packed when I arrived. I stood at the edge of the crowd, watching parents stream in and out carrying gifts, balloons, flowers. Kids clutched their parents' hands, laughing, tugging them excitedly toward the classrooms. Across the playground I spotted Noah. He was standing outside his classroom wearing a blue polo shirt, hugging a sketchbook tightly to his chest, craning his neck to peer down the hall. Every time a group of parents came into view, he looked up with a flicker of hope. And every time no one came for him, his small shoulders sagged just a little more. I clutched the light sweater I had brought, standing still, not moving any closer. Inside the classroom, the noise swelled. Laughter, camera shutters, parents proudly taking pictures with their kids. Noah pressed himself against the wall, clutching his sketchbook like it was the only solid thing left. He looked like a forgotten shadow, lost among the crowd. A teacher crouched down beside him, said something quietly. Noah shook his head hard, his eyes never leaving the doorway. His little face was stiff, tense. His shoelaces had come undone, but he didn't notice. His hand kept twisting the hem of his shirt, wringing it into wrinkled knots. I stayed where I was, my palms sweating despite the crisp warmth of the autumn day. Felt like ice was sliding down my spine. When the event was nearly over, Noah finally lowered his head, clutching his sketchbook to his chest, and shuffled toward the door. He passed by groups of other kids and overheard someone whisper, "His dad didn't come." His steps faltered just for a second. Then he dropped his head even lower and hurried on. Without thinking, I took a few steps forward. Noah looked up, and our eyes met across the playground. His eyes widened slightly, caught off guard. But in the next heartbeat he turned away sharply, yanked his backpack straps tight, and sprinted toward the street crowded with cars. The wind tousled his hair, and under the bright sun his small figure looked so lonely, so stubborn. I stayed where I was. I didn't chase after him. I just stood there, clutching the sweater I never got to give him, my fingers digging so hard into the fabric they nearly tore it. When the schoolyard finally emptied out, I turned and walked back to my car. As I opened the door, I caught sight of a small blue plastic button lying on a patch of concrete near the playground. It was a little decoration from Noah's backpack, probably ripped off when he ran. I bent down and picked it up, closing my fingers around it. The button was scuffed, the edges frayed and rough. It reminded me of the little teething toys Noah used to chew on as a baby. Once he got something in his hand, he never wanted to let it go. I closed my eyes for a moment, then slipped the button into my purse. When I started the engine, I didn't cry. But it felt like a heavy stone had settled deep in my chest, so heavy I could barely breathe. After coming home from the school, I gathered up all of Noah's little things. His sneakers, his sketchbooks, and that backpack missing a button. I packed them all away on the top shelf of the bedroom closet. I didn't throw them out. I just put them away for now. In the living room, I swapped out the family photo for one of Lily's colorful drawings. On the entryway shelf, I placed the small potted plant David had given me last month. The house was still full of life. Lily ran through the rooms, her little feet thudding against the floorboards. David was in the kitchen grinding coffee beans, the rich aroma filling the entire house. I slipped an apron over my head and started baking again, something I hadn't done in what felt like forever. Whisking eggs, kneading dough, filling the baking molds. Every step was slow, almost meditative. Lily climbed onto her little stool, giggling as she licked batter from the back of a spoon. "Mommy, can you make bunny-shaped cookies this time?" she chirped. I smiled, my hands rolling dough into small neat balls, placing them carefully on the baking sheet. "Of course," I said. The oven light glowed warmly. The scent of butter and sugar began to drift through the air. The little clock on the stove ticked softly. The house grew still, quiet except for the sound of our breathing and the delicate rise of the baking cake. Standing there, I realized I hadn't focused so purely on something in a long time. Not for someone else. Not to win anyone's approval. Just for myself. That evening, David suggested we take a walk to the community center. We strolled along the sidewalk under streetlights that flickered on one by one, casting soft pools of light. Neighbors were trimming hedges. Kids were flying kites at the street corners. At the entrance to the community center, there was a new poster calling for volunteers. David pointed to it with a grin. What do you think? Baking classes, kids' art projects. Sounds right up your alley. I didn't answer immediately. I glanced down at my fingertips, pale and slightly worn. After a moment, I reached up and tore off a registration slip, folded it carefully and tucked it into my jacket pocket. The breeze stirred, making the pocket puff out slightly, like a small, stubborn ember still glowing quietly inside me. A few days later, I ran into Jess at the grocery store. She was pushing a cart and waved as she spotted me, walking over with an easy smile. Rachel, did you hear? Eric Nolan's engaged. Met a girl at the gym. She's got a 5-year-old boy. She said it casually, but the moment the words hit my ears, my fingers clutched the shopping basket so tightly it creaked. I forced a smile, tried to keep my voice light. Oh, really? Jess didn't notice the stiffness in my face. She went on cheerfully, saw them downtown last weekend at the bakery. That little boy, adorable. Eric had him in his arms, looking just like a proud dad. A buzzing filled my ears and my palms grew slick with sweat. Jess eventually drifted into another topic. I nodded along, pushing the cart aimlessly down the aisles, the shelves and products blurring into a smear of colors I couldn't quite see. When I got home, I didn't tell David. That night, after reading Lily her bedtime story, I sat by the window for a long time, watching the stars prick the dark sky one by one. There was a weight pressing down on my chest, thick and relentless, pulling me downward. Noah. Was he okay? Saturday evening, Lily was in the living room building a tower out of blocks. I was in the kitchen baking a fresh batch of cookies. My phone buzzed, a notification from the school's parent group. Absent-mindedly, I tapped it open. They had posted photos from the open house group activities. Scrolling through dozens of smiling faces, I spotted Noah immediately. There he was, wearing that familiar blue polo shirt, crouched by the edge of the playground, knees pulled tightly to his chest, head bowed. No adults stood near him. No friends. Around him, kids were laughing, running around with their parents, posing for pictures. And Noah, he looked like a small, forgotten island, curled in on himself. My heart twisted so hard it felt like it might tear in two. 2 days later, when Jess came by to pick up the pie she had ordered, she casually mentioned, "Oh, by the way, I saw Eric at the bakery again. He was holding his new girlfriend's kid, being super affectionate. The little boy was throwing a tantrum and Eric spent forever coaxing him, laughing and spoiling him like crazy." I gave a small smile and turned toward the kitchen to fetch the cake. Behind the cover of my back, my fingers silently dug into the palm of my hand. Sunday night, I was driving to the community center to drop off some paperwork. Passing near Eric's neighborhood, a red light caught me at the corner. Across the street, I spotted their front yard, warmly lit under the porch light. Eric's new girlfriend was crouched down on the lawn, tying a kite for her son. Eric leaned casually against the doorframe, a beer bottle dangling from his hand, occasionally glancing down and smiling at them. And Noah, he stood on the far side of the yard, clutching a deflated basketball, his head lowered, scuffing slow, tired circles into the dirt with the toe of his shoe. No one called out to him. No one even glanced his way. The breeze lifted the hem of his little polo shirt, outlining the narrow slope of his lonely shoulders. I sat frozen behind the wheel. The red light turned green. A car behind me blared its horn, jerking me back to the present. I pressed the gas pedal lightly, the car inching forward. In the rearview mirror, I caught a last glimpse of that small, solitary figure standing forgotten in the wind. Like a broken kite, its strings snapped, abandoned in the grass. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, listening to the wind whisper through the leaves outside, tossing and turning, unable to find any peace. Noah. The little boy who once needed me to sit by his bedside because he was afraid of the dark. now stood outside the walls of his father's new life. Not even belonging to a kite. I threw off the covers and got out of bed. Pulling open a drawer, I reached all the way to the bottom and found it. The small plastic button Noah had lost at school. I laid it in my palm and closed my fingers tightly around it. My hand grew hot, but the button stayed cold as ice. I kept waiting for Noah to reach out to me. But the waiting hurt worse than anything else. Friday evening, I was out in the yard pruning the rose bushes. The snip-snap of the shears was sharp in the quiet air. Fallen petals piled in small soft drifts at my feet. My phone lay beside the chair. Suddenly it buzzed once. I pulled off my gloves and grabbed it without thinking. A number flashed across the screen. Noah. My heart leapt into my throat. I answered immediately, pressing the phone hard against my ear. There was no voice on the other end. Just the faint sound of breathing. I held my breath too, whispering as gently as I could. Noah? Sweetheart. There was a pause, a few aching seconds. Then the line went dead. I stared at the dark screen, stunned, unable to move for a long moment. The phone stayed cradled in my palm, my fingertips slowly dampening with sweat. I didn't call him back. I was terrified that if I reached too soon, I would scare away whatever fragile courage had made him call. Instead, I set the phone back down and bent over my roses again. A thorn snagged my finger, drawing a bright bead of blood. I wiped it absent-mindedly against my jeans and kept working. The wind stirred through the yard, carrying the scents of earth and flowers, and made my eyes burn with unshed tears. The next evening, the community center was hosting the fall fair. I took Lily along to set up a little booth, selling the sweet pies I had baked. The air buzzed with laughter, the high-pitched squeals of kids, and the cheerful tunes from a small live band, all blending together into a lively miniature carnival. I was busy handing change to a neighbor when, glancing up, I caught sight of a small, familiar figure at the edge of the crowd. Noah. He was wearing a faded t-shirt and carrying his little backpack, standing shyly just beyond the throng, staring toward us. I pretended not to notice, keeping my hands steady as I helped Lily rearrange the cookies on the table. But Lily saw him too. She immediately waved her tiny arms in the air and shouted, "Toa." Noah flinched, like he wasn't sure whether to run away or come closer. Slowly, hesitantly, he began to weave his way through the crowd, one small step at a time, until he stood at the edge of our booth. His fingers twisted nervously around the strap of his backpack. His eyes flickered over my face, then darted away just as fast. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely louder than the hum of the crowd. I just happened to be around here today. I looked up at him, smiling gently, my voice easy and warm. Is that so? What a coincidence. He nodded vigorously, his ears turning a deep shade of red, as ripe as apples. I picked up a slice of blueberry pie and held it out to him. Want a piece? Used to love blueberry the most. He hesitated, then carefully took it from my hand, nibbling at it with tiny, cautious bites. As he chewed, he kept sneaking glances at me out of the corner of his eye, as if testing the waters, as if afraid of breaking something too fragile to name. The sun was slipping lower, casting a soft orange glow across the sky. We packed up the booth. Lily hopped excitedly around, clutching a new stuffed toy. David was by the car on the phone, organizing the last of the gear. I bent down to fold the tablecloth when a small, delicate voice floated behind me. "Mom." I turned around and saw Noah standing a few feet away, his head lowered, scuffing his sneaker against the ground. "Are you guys going home?" he asked, his voice almost vanishing into the evening air. I nodded, smiling. "We are." He bit his lip, fidgeted, and after a long, anxious pause he whispered, "Can I go with you?" My fingers tightened slightly around the fabric I was folding, but I kept my smile easy, my voice steady. "Of course you can. Lily would be thrilled." At that, Lily shrieked with joy and sprinted over, throwing her arms around Noah's waist. "We're going home together." Noah stiffened at first, but then slowly he hugged her back, awkwardly, shyly, but he hugged her. On the drive home, Noah sat in the back seat, leaning against the window, watching the world pass by in silence. He didn't say a word. But I knew. Something had shifted. Something was beginning to heal. When we turned onto our driveway and the car came to a stop, Noah didn't wait for me to open the door. He jumped out first, hurrying to the front steps. He stood there by the door just like he used to when he was little, waiting for me to catch up. I walked up, pulled out my keys and opened the door. The moment it swung open, warm light spilled out, bathing Noah's face in gold. He ducked his head and muttered, "Mom, I'll be good." I knelt down, reaching out to smooth his hair. I didn't say anything. I just wrapped my arms around him and held him close. The first night Noah was back, the house felt unusually quiet. Lily bounced around him excitedly, pulling out her favorite puzzle and insisting he help her put it together. David made warm milk and set the mugs on the coffee table. I busied myself in the kitchen, pretending to focus on wiping down the countertops, but my eyes kept drifting toward the living room. Noah sat stiffly at the far corner of the couch, his back ramrod straight, both hands gripping the puzzle box like a small, skittish animal ready to bolt at any second. Dinner was a little awkward. Lily, chewing thoughtfully on her fork, asked, "Noah, are you going to stay home every day now?" Noah kept his head down, poking at his food with his fork, silent for a long time before mumbling a soft, barely audible, "Yeah." I didn't push him. I didn't ask what had happened at Eric's. I just quietly filled his plate, one dish at a time, like nothing had changed. At first, Noah sat rigidly, every muscle tense. But when David reached over and placed a piece of steak on his plate, something in him seemed to ease just a little. After dinner, I gathered up the plates and carried them into the kitchen. When I turned around, I caught Noah standing hesitantly by the table, twisting the hem of his shirt between his fingers, his face flushed pink. "Mom," he said, voice low, eyes glued to the floor, "can I help you wash the dishes?" I froze for a moment. This was the same Noah who had always whined about dishwashing being boring, who dragged his feet every time I asked for help. And now here he was asking. I set down the dishcloth and smiled. "Of course you can." Relieved, Noah scrambled to the sink, clumsily grabbing a plate and a sponge, his small hands awkward but determined. Water splashed over his sleeves. He frowned in frustration but stubbornly scrubbed each plate, refusing to give up. I stood beside him, silently drying the dishes he handed me, not correcting, not interfering. The kitchen filled with the quiet sounds of running water and the gentle clink of plates. It was the most comforting noise I had heard in a long, long time. By 9 o'clock I was sitting on the couch, sorting through paperwork for the community center. Noah shuffled over, hugging a storybook to his chest, hesitating, then nudging my arm shyly. I set down my pen and looked up. He held the book out toward me, his voice small and hopeful. "Will you read to me? Like you used to?" For a second I couldn't speak. My throat tightened with a rush of emotion. I patted the couch beside me. "Come here," I said, smiling. Noah immediately curled up against me, tucking himself into my side, resting his head on my shoulder. I opened the book and began to read aloud, the simple story rolling softly through the room. Little by little his breathing slowed, deepened. Under the warm light, his eyelashes cast faint, delicate shadows on his cheeks. Halfway through the story I felt his small hand, hesitant, searching, find the edge of my sweater. He gripped it tightly. Tightly like he used to when he was little and terrified I'd leave him at preschool. That night I didn't ask him about the past. I didn't ask what had happened, didn't press him for answers or apologies. And he didn't explain, didn't say sorry. He just clung to me again and again, holding onto the fabric of my sweater like a lifeline. I gently patted his back, feeling the warmth of his small body pressed against me. There was an ache in my heart, a tenderness too. Some things I realized had found their way back. Slowly, painfully. But they came back after all. After Noah officially came back home, life gradually settled into a steady rhythm. Every day after school he would change into his home clothes and quietly sit down to do his homework. After dinner he would help me wipe down the table and read picture books to Lily. It wasn't a jarring, over-the-top obedience. It was a clumsy but genuine effort. Like a small, battered sapling, slowly stretching toward the sunlight once again. I didn't push him. I didn't pull him. I simply stayed there. A steady wall at his back, silent, patient, waiting. One afternoon I was pruning roses in the yard when my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize flashed on the screen. I answered without thinking. Eric's voice came through, hoarse and agitated. "Rachel, I heard Noah's back with you? You think you can just steal him away?" My hand froze mid-snip, but my voice stayed calm, smooth as a still pond. "Noah came back because he wanted to." Eric let out a bitter laugh. "He's just acting out. You're poisoning him against me. I'm going to file for custody again. You hear me? See you in court. I didn't argue. I simply replied cool and even. Fine. See you in court. And then I hung up. My fingertips were still a little cold, but inside I was steady. Steadier than I had been in years. That night, I sat in the study and pulled out the old divorce and custody papers. The next morning, I met Nancy at a coffee shop, an old friend, now a senior lawyer at a small firm. I laid out the whole story over coffee. Nancy listened quietly, pushing up her glasses with a nod. Don't worry. As long as Noah clearly states his wishes and considering Eric's unstable lifestyle, there's no way he can win custody. She hesitated, then added gently, but people like him, they don't go down easily. You should be ready. I smiled, lifting my coffee cup. That's okay. I'm not the scared girl I was in my 20s anymore. Meanwhile, rumors about Eric started circulating through the community. His fiancée, or rather his ex-fiancée, posted a scathing rant on social media. Drunkenness, job hopping, piling up credit card debt, even threatening her child. The post went viral overnight. Even the old pastor at church made a veiled comment during Sunday service about the importance of family responsibilities. Eric's social circle iced over almost instantly. Those who once toasted with him acted like they'd never known his name. Word was, even his new job had fallen apart. The last flimsy mask he wore was ripped clean away. Me. I just kept doing what I had always done. Driving Lily to school. Picking up Noah after classes. Teaching weekend baking workshops at the community center. Living my life. Solid, simple, steady. One afternoon, Noah came home, clutching a wrinkled piece of paper in his hand. He walked over, shy and hesitant, and held it out to me. One of my classmates gave me this. Dad told him to. I unfolded the paper. Eric's handwriting was angry, rushed. Noah, come home. Your mom's brainwashing you. I'm your real family. The paper was crumpled, worn thin in places like it had been clenched over and over. I didn't say anything. I simply folded it neatly and tucked it away in a drawer. Noah bit his lip, eyes darting anxiously. Mom, he said, almost whispering, can I not go back? I crouched down so we were eye to eye, my voice quiet but firm. Noah, what do you want? He stared into my eyes for a long time. Then he gave a hard, decisive nod. I want to stay here. I don't want to go back to him. I reached out and ruffled his hair. No pressure, no fuss, no grand declarations. Just a simple hug and a soft pat on his back. Hey, I said. Then you're staying here. A few weeks later, the court ruling came down. Based on Noah's stated wishes and Eric's unstable circumstances, I was granted full sole custody. The day the documents arrived, we celebrated by planting new flowers in the backyard. The soil was rich and loose. The sunlight warm and generous. Noah knelt beside me, carefully pressing small seedlings into the earth. Mom, he asked, glancing up, do you think these will bloom someday? I bent low, tucking a tiny cornflower into the dirt, smiling. They will, I said. As long as we take care of them, they'll bloom beautifully. David joined us, watering the rows of tiny shoots. Lily clapped her hands, twirling to her own little tune. I stood up, looking at the family we had built, the life we had chosen, and a fierce, quiet joy filled my chest. The breeze swept through the yard, carrying the scent of earth and fresh grass, brushing against my face like a blessing. Once I thought some wounds would never heal. But here they were. Not only healing but blooming. Bright and stubborn against the odds. No one handed this life to me. I fought for every inch of it, step by step. On my own.
I'm Noah. I remember the first day I moved in with Dad. I was actually pretty excited. Dad blasted rock music from the car speakers. The windows rolled down so wide the wind messed up my hair into a wild, tangled mess. I sat in the passenger seat, clutching the box of my brand new basketball shoes, telling myself over and over, this is awesome. I'm finally free from Mom's nagging. In my head, I even made a freedom checklist. Play video games for 3 hours a day. Eat 2 ice creams every day. Stay up until midnight. Run around the house in my pajamas. Never, ever have to eat carrots or those awful boiled broccoli again. The more I thought about it, the bigger my grin got. Dad glanced over, chuckled, and reached out to ruffle my hair. Kid, he said, with Dad, You can do whatever you want. In that moment, I really did feel like I was finally grown up. The first night at Dad's place, I used his credit card to order the latest game console. The room was stacked with bags of chips, cans of soda, and piles of snacks. The living room TV was always on. No one told me when to go to bed. No one yelled at me to turn off the lights. I lounged on the couch, munching on cheese puffs, gaming until my thumbs ached, feeling on top of the world. See, I told myself, I'm fine without Mom. I'm doing great. But little by little, some things started to feel off. One night, Dad threw a party with a bunch of his friends. I hid in the kitchen and stole a can of beer, my heart racing like crazy. I figured if all the adults drink, one sip won't hurt, right? The ice-cold liquid burned down my throat, making me cough so hard my chest ached. My stomach churned until I thought I might throw up my whole dinner. That night, I curled up in the corner of my room, clutching a trash can, breaking into a cold sweat from the pain in my gut. Outside, the grown-ups laughed and hollered. Nobody noticed I was missing. Nobody knocked on my door to ask if I was okay. The next day, I put on a brave face, played video games, ate chips like nothing had happened. Because deep down, I didn't want to admit it. My freedom checklist. Maybe, it wasn't as great as I thought. At first, Dad would still shoot hoops with me sometimes, or take me out for burgers. But pretty soon, he got busier and busier. He was always on the phone, or out in the yard laughing way too loudly with a blonde lady. One time, I finished a drawing I was really proud of and ran outside to show him. Dad, I shouted, waving the paper in the air. But he was too busy joking with the blonde lady to hear me. I called out again. This time, he finally looked up, frowned, and snapped. Noah, not now. We'll talk later. The lady just laughed, glancing at me like I was some noisy stray dog. I stood there, still holding my drawing, my arms burning from how long I'd been holding it up. Eventually, I just folded it up quietly and slipped back inside. That night, I kept folding that drawing over and over until it was a crumpled ball stuffed deep into the bottom of my drawer. Later, Dad moved the blonde lady and her son into the house. The little boy was younger than me, chubby, running around in shiny new sneakers and clutching a sparkling robot toy. Dad painted the kid's new room a bright yellow, bought him a full set of new sheets, new toys, took him to the amusement park. I stood on the staircase, watching them lug bags into the house, hearing Dad laugh and say, "Look at him. What a good kid. Not like someone else I know, always hiding in his room with a sour face." Someone nearby laughed along and added, "Yeah, kids these days, bigger attitude than the adults." Everyone laughed. Like I wasn't even standing there. Like I was invisible. One afternoon, they threw a backyard party. Dad stood with a beer in his hand, laughing with his buddies. The little boy zipped around the lawn on a new skateboard, the adults clapping and cheering, praising how smart and well-behaved he was. I stood under the porch, holding a basketball against my chest, watching the whole scene from a distance. No one called me over. No one asked if I wanted to play. I slowly squatted down, rolling the basketball under my foot. The sun was blinding. I squinted against the light, my throat dry, but no words would come out. That night, I hid in the laundry room. The washing machine roared and shook the floor under me. I curled up beside it, pressing my face into my knees, trying so hard not to make a sound. But the tears still came, silently soaking through the knees of my jeans. I didn't dare cry out loud. I was afraid if Dad heard me, he'd just frown and snap. "Noah, can you quit being so annoying?" So I stayed there, tucked into the corner of the laundry room, letting the rumble of the machine cover the sound of a little boy breaking quietly apart. Like a tiny mouse no one even noticed. Hurting all alone. Friday night, the house was hollow and silent. Dad, that lady, and her son had gone out, off to some party. No one mentioned me. No one asked if I wanted to come. In the fridge, there was nothing but a box of dried-out chicken nuggets. I grabbed one, took a bite. Cold, rubbery, and hard. The TV was on, flashing mindless ads across the empty living room, the sound bouncing off the walls. I curled up in the corner of the couch, hugging my knees, watching the sky outside go from dusky blue to black as the streetlights flickered on, one by one. At the house next door, the windows glowed warm and soft. I could see a little kid riding a bike around the yard, a mother calling from the door. "Come in, it's time for dinner." I buried my face deeper into the crack of the sofa. My chest hurt, a tight, scratchy ache, like a kitten clawing from the inside. I don't know exactly when, but suddenly, my hand reached for my phone. That number. I knew it by heart, could dial it with my eyes closed. My thumb hovered, tapping, trembling, before finally pressing call. The line rang twice, and panic exploded in my chest. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. Sweat prickled my palms. Noah. Mom's voice. Soft. Familiar. Like a warm blanket on a freezing night. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My throat was stuffed with cotton. All I could hear was my own shallow breathing. Fear. Sadness. And something sharp and aching that felt a lot like shame. I stayed silent. Noah. Sweetheart. She called again, gently, like she was reaching for me. I squeezed my eyes shut, gritted my teeth, and with a trembling finger, I ended the call. The screen went black, reflecting back a pale, lonely face I barely recognized. I curled tighter into myself, hugging my knees, staring blankly at the floor. In my head, I kept chanting, I'm a man now. Men handle their own problems. But no matter how many times I repeated it, my eyes stung hotter and hotter, until the tears spilled over, dropping onto my jeans, burning like tiny sparks. I didn't sleep much that night. Mom's voice kept echoing in my mind. Soft, steady, calling my name like I hadn't been forgotten after all. Saturday afternoon, there was a fall fair in the park near school. I heard some classmates talking about it, candy stalls, popcorn, a little playground. I knew better than to expect Dad to take me. He was too busy signing the new kid up for some baseball camp. So I sneaked out on my own, pedaling an old beat-up bike along the sidewalk, all the way to the park. The place was packed. Tents everywhere, balloons bobbing in the breeze, the air full of music and laughter. I wove through the crowd, pushing my bike, looking around. I didn't even know what I was looking for. Until I saw her. Mom was wearing a light denim jacket and a white apron, crouched by a small booth arranging trays of pies. Lily was beside her, handing her forks, giggling and chattering. David was wrestling with a stubborn tent pole, his face red from the effort. Sunlight spilled over them, soft and golden. I froze. Stood there, hidden at the edge of the crowd, rooted to the spot. They looked so happy. So whole. So complete. And I felt like an extra piece, something that didn't fit. I wanted to turn and leave. Really, I did. But my feet wouldn't move. Inside my chest, a tiny, scared voice whispered, Go. Just walk over. Maybe they still want you. I gritted my teeth, pushing through the crowd, inching toward the booth. My heart thudded painfully in my ears. My palms were slick with sweat. Then Lily spotted me. Brother, she squealed, waving frantically and bouncing toward me. I froze, wishing I could disappear into the pavement. Mom looked up too. Her eyes found mine. Surprised but warm. No yelling. No rushing toward me. Just a small, gentle smile. Like the first ray of sun after a long, brutal winter. Something inside me cracked. I dropped my gaze, shuffling closer, twisting my fingers in the hem of my t-shirt. I was just passing by, I mumbled, the words barely escaping my mouth, almost snatched away by the wind. Mom crouched down to my level, smiling so warmly it made my chest ache. Is that so? She said softly. That's quite the coincidence. I stared hard at the ground, teeth digging into my lip. Inside, that small voice screamed. Say it. Just say it. I sucked in a breath, my face burning, and blurted out in a whisper so faint I barely heard it myself. Can I go home with you? For a heartbeat, everything went still. Mom's eyes shimmered, but she didn't cry. She just reached out, smoothing my hair, smiling like it was the most natural thing in the world. Of course you can, she said. Lily threw her arms around my waist, squealing. Brother's coming home. I bit down hard on the inside of my cheek, pretending to fiddle with my shoelaces so they wouldn't see the tears pooling in my eyes. The ride home, I sat in the back seat, hugging the little plush rabbit Lily had stuffed into my arms. The breeze drifted through the windows, carrying the scent of leaves and wood smoke, that familiar smell of autumn. I leaned against the window, sneaking glances at Mom driving, and deep down, something warm and bright flickered to life in my chest. For the first time in a long time, I felt it, like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And I knew I was never going to let go again.